So good evening, everybody. Welcome to our abundance evening. And what a beautiful subject abundance is. We're really glad to have you all with us and all of those of you online. And a lot of what we're doing is a combination of spiritual principles and very practical, down-to-earth principles. And nothing could be more down to earth than just managing our day-to-day finances, our budgeting process. And if we avoid it, though, it can become hugely problematic. So we're going to be talking about how we can get around that and how we can really make what may seem very mundane and boring, how we can make it work for us, because it really is a critical aspect. And we're going to be hearing from people who really have done the work, have really been on the ground, have really been at rock bottom and brought themselves up. We have a couple of just wonderful speakers this evening. We're going to start off with Ashley Whitaker, who will be sharing with us her experiences, and invited her along, and her husband David Whitaker. And then we'll be hearing from Nick Siegel, who we've seen before here and has shared his experiences. We heard him on National Public Radio in the last event that we had here, and describing how he was literally down to his last $100, and now he's brought himself up and is a very highly regarded real estate executive in Los Angeles, in Southern California. A lot of what we'll be looking at are these books. There's one called God is Your Partner, and then a series called, I didn't turn them the right way, Living the Spiritual Principles of Abundance and Prosperity. Now, good news about this is if you go to MSIA.org, msia.org/abundance, you can download these books for free of charge. So they're really wonderful books with lots of quotes and lots of wonderful ideas and techniques and inspiration. So please feel free to go there. And in case I forget later on, introducing Nick Siegel. He is the author of this recent book, On Your Terms. And this book available on Amazon, and we'll be hearing from Nick later on. This center that we're at, Peace, Awareness, Labyrinth, and Gardens, and the headquarters of the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness, was founded by John Roger. And I like to start each of my sessions when I'm doing a workshop or whatever it is with some words from John Roger. They're just a minute, but these words that he says are so profound and really set the tone for everything that I'm involved in. He's talking about where we place our focus, there will be our heart. It's just a minute. John Roger was the reason I moved out here, in the 70s, many years ago, over 40 years ago. And he passed away about 4 years ago. And his work, though, still goes on in a very deep way. And what he brought forward was so many wonderful areas of practical spirituality that we're still learning how to work with what he's taught us. And really the central point of it was loving. John Roger always came back to loving, and you'll hear that from him now. So we'll hear a quick excerpt from John Roger.
Where you place your focus, there will be your heart. Where you place your focus, there will be your heart. And that will be the spiritual heart. So if you want to, right now, have a real short seminar that will last a long time for you, take in your loving into the center of your being and allow it to just expand and lift you into whatever level of consciousness you want, because God said, everything I have is yours.
I never tire of hearing that. Number one, it's a reminder to bring my loving into the center of my heart and to come into this loving energy field. And also it just creates an atmosphere of peace in the room. One of the ways that we can bring forward that peace is simply through kind of a process I call dialing it in. You know, one of the analogies I have is this: if I asked you to listen to the classical music playing in the room, you may say, I'm not hearing any classical music playing. And I will say, well, please listen carefully because it is playing right here, right now. And I would bring in a radio and I would dial in the classical music station and the room would be filled with classical music. Well, the music didn't come in with the radio. The radio was just a tuning instrument. And we human beings are tuning instruments with the capacity to tune into any vibration, any frequency, any level of consciousness. So if we wanted to raise the vibration in this room, we wouldn't actually have to bring anything from outside of the room into it. We would merely dial in the higher vibration from the potential that is already here now. So we can just do that by simply asking. Just now we ask for the highest and purest light, from the highest and purest source, to surround and fill this room and each one of us here and everyone online for the highest good. And so you can feel this qualitative shift in the room. From all of the possibilities available to us, we selected, we dialed in, we called ourselves forward into a sacredness, a holiness, a sacred light, a Holy Spirit that now pervades this room and each one of us here. So, in many ways, this is what abundance is. What channel are we on? If we're on the lack channel, the not enough channel, the scarcity channel, we will see scarcity, lack, not enoughness everywhere we go. But the fact of the matter is the abundance channel also is present. And in order to be on the abundance channel, we have to dial in the abundance channel. Well, how do we do that? Well, we ask, but we also dial in our own vibration into it. And sometimes that takes a little bit of help. Sometimes we need to be in an environment like this that actually stimulates us to, okay, I can do that. I'm around like-minded people. It's almost like other people's abundance kind of carry us along on their wave, and we get to get the feeling and the sense of that. So as I introduce our next speaker, I just want you to see that they'll carry us along with their wave of experience, that things are possible. And then we can just open up and dial in our vibration at a little more refined level. But really, I do look at it that way, that it's just like, okay, if you want to be loving, get on the loving channel. I think it's plenty. You can get on the scary channel. I mean, and part of the problem is that when we of course I'm online a lot. I click on the news. It could be BBC News, New York Times, LA Times. I mean, it's scary. It's always scary, right? I mean, you're not flooded with good news. I mean, you're just flooded with the latest kind of the world has 10 more years, and we're going to run out of water by 2030, and the Social Security, I mean, it's going to run out, nobody's going to have any money, we're all going to die, and it's just like, oh my God. So it's no wonder, I mean, it's just, if you're in a neutral state, you're dialed in by that news. And I think that's what we have to watch. We have to watch being dialed in by somebody else's agenda. So it's fine if we choose to be on the lack channel. I'm not enough. That's fine. That's my choice. But to have it imposed. So the fact of the matter is that we are enough. That we are spiritual beings, and that we have this opportunity and this creativity and this imagination and this possibility thinking. And we can take a lesson from quantum physics, which says that everything really exists as a possibility. And so we kind of collapse the wave, as it's called in quantum physics, into a real thing through what we believe, through the reality that we choose. So I'm asking you this evening to be open to a new reality for yourself, that if you go away with one little key that you can work, it'll be so much useful. So just go for that one little key. Don't try and go, I'm going to absorb everything tonight. You'll probably get a lot of ideas. But just the one little key that you can work in your world and build upon that. And I think that's where the secret is. It's a real pleasure for me to introduce Ashley Whitaker, who's here today to share with us her experience. I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to say. And because I'm here to learn as well. I'm not a teacher. I'm a kind of an explorer. I like to explore subjects and learn from them, and I'm here to explore abundance with you tonight. So please, Ashley, come up here and share with us your joy and love.
So when Paul first connected with me about doing this, I asked him if I could show a 2-minute clip. This is Anthony DeMello. And he really creates a context for how I feel about spirituality and budgeting.
Go out and tie that camel to the post, you fool. God cannot be bothered doing what you can do for yourself. Pretty good, huh? That is very important to keep in mind when we talk about prayer. God cannot be bothered doing for you what you can do for yourself. I'm reminded of the Jewish rabbi who had served God faithfully all his life. And he said one day to God, God, I have been a devout worshiper and I have kept the law as best I could. And I've been a good Jew. Now I'm old and I need some help. Let me win the lottery. It will help for my old age. Well, he prayed and he prayed and he prayed and he prayed. And 1 month went by, and 2, and 3, and 5, and a whole year went by, and 3 years went by. And the man in desperation one day said, God, give me a break. And God said, give me a break yourself, buy a ticket. Well,
That's it.
that...
So how many of us here want to start praying to God and then go out and buy a lottery ticket by show of hands? Any of us in here want to do that? Well, I looked on the way over here, and I thought, well, if I could give you the best financial advice about the lottery, and I have to tell you in advance, I am actually not qualified to give you any financial advice, so just keep that in mind all night. That I would tell you to not buy a lottery ticket. When I said I was coming over here, I decided to look up what the odds are of winning the lottery. Currently, it is 1 in 3 million chances in winning the jackpot. So for those of you who are a little bit more visual, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, that's 1 car out of every car in all of LA. So for me, I wanted to talk about something that's way less painful than LA traffic, and that is about creating and living within a budget. I use a form of budgeting that's called zero-based budgeting, and I prepared this very simple version of it. And if you can't see and you want to move over there, you're welcome to. So zero-based budgeting, the point of it is that you start with your total income. So in this scenario, this person is making $500 a month. Then you're wanting to figure out what all your expenses are. So you'll see this person starting out tithing, and tithing is giving 10% of your income to your spiritual practice. And then they're paying rent, $250. They clearly do not live in Los Angeles. And then the rest of their expenses are listed down here, and you'll see, if my math is right, that the total expenses is $500. So in zero-based budgeting, you take your income, which in this case is $500, minus your expenses, and which is $500, and that should equal 0. So this is what you want to have happen. And This person was very lucky because this worked out for them. The very first time that I tried to do zero-based budgeting, it was not this easy. So this is more what my experience was, that this number was $400 a month, and I had $500 a month worth of expenses. So we had our income, $400, minus our expenses. We're having negative $100 here. So in this case, obviously, you either need to raise your income. I chose to do that by basically, I read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying and selling everything that I owned. Or some people pick up other jobs. Or you can reduce your expenses. I'm going to talk about the other end of the spectrum, which happens for people too, which is a little bit more confusing, I think. So let's say that this number is actually $600 a month. So you have your income, which is $600, your expenses are $500, and you're left over with $100. Yay, would be the natural response, but in this case, it's no, because you want this number to equal 0. So you would need to figure out what are you doing with this extra $100. So I would suggest that you have a section in your budget that is equal to savings, and that you're putting your $100 here. So then you have $600 worth of income minus $600 worth of expenses, and you're left with the zero-based budget. And the reason that's important is that you're allocating all of your money that's coming in. So I've been doing this for a while now. I would say I started about 10 years ago. And since I've been doing it, people have asked me to help them create budgets. And so David and I recently, David's my husband that's over there, we started mentoring some people, and they have a lot of questions, and inevitably, my very first objection is, but Ashley, I don't make enough money to create a budget. So to give you a little context around when I started budgeting, I was living in New Orleans. I had just completed a program called AmeriCorps, and for those of you that aren't familiar, it's like the Domestic Peace Corps. And I lived off a living stipend that was in total $10,400. And that, for those of you that are math challenged, like I am, that boils down to about $12 a day. After I completed this program, I then started working for a nonprofit, and I made a very modest income, and it was at that time that I started to budget. So a budget is workable. It's really just a tool. It helps you plan and direct where you want your money to go to, whether that's a little amount or a large amount. So it's just a tool. And I wanted to, when Paul was talking to me about sharing, he just wanted me to share about my experience, but I also wanted to have people walk away with some practical tools. So I'm going to ask David, my husband, to come up here and help you get started with doing your zero-based budget by looking at where is your money going. Now, this has been one of the most challenging things for people that when I talk with them, because there can be shame associated with it, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to ask you to shout out, where do you currently spend your money? So, and he'll just write them up here. Food, rent. Gas. Starbucks. Discourses, great. Workshops. Clothing. Automobile. Cell phone. Netflix, laundry. Gas. Mani-pedis, good. Earth Cafe, is that what you said? At least you're eating well.
Air one. Wi-Fi.
Supplements. Insurance.
Supplements. Ooh, insurance.
Dancing, drinking.
Hey, now we're getting honest. Dancing, drinking,
Traveling, someone said.
traveling, we got here.
Children, that's a good one.
Vacay,
Dentist,
kids, dentist,
dry cleaning. Electronics, probably electricity maybe too. computers.
Taxes, debt consolidation.
/chronic. Debt? That's a good one.
Debt consolidation.
Credit card, debt,
Credit card.
saving for vacation.
Saving
Vacay.
and vacays.
Saving. That was a
What was that? Hairdressers?
hairdresser.
Hairdresser.
The gym. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was that?
Jim's Burgers.
Good, great. If you spend money on it, it's good to be up here. So now that we have this whole list, I want you to take out some paper and just write down the ones that apply to you. A list of all the places on this list or outside of this list where you're spending your money right now. We'll just take a few more moments to have you complete. And know this is always something that you come back to. This, when we're looking at this example, these are all the categories that will help you if you're doing a zero-based budgeting. So I shared with you about where I was at in my life when I started to budget, and I just want to tell you a little bit about why. So I mentioned I was living in New Orleans, and I just completed the AmeriCorps program, and I was working at a nonprofit that rebuilt homes that were destroyed after Hurricane Katrina. And one of my coworkers asked me if I wanted to go to Financial Peace University, which is a video course by Dave Ramsey. And I, at the time, was way more interested in going out and meeting guys. And I thought for a moment, and I was like, you know, I bet the quality of dude that I would meet would be way higher at a financial class than at the bars that I was going to. So I signed up. And I went with her, and I got over my initial disappointment of being the only single person in this entire workshop by recognizing the impact that this was going to have on my life. The person that introduced me to it, her name is Andrea Bontrager, and she still is someone that I consider having one of the most influential people in my life because the impact that this course had. Within the time after completing this workshop, I was able to create a budget, live within it. I saved 3 to 6 months of my living expenses to create an emergency fund. I paid off all my debt, and I was able to save for a master's program in California the whole first year of tuition, which was something that I greatly wanted to do. And for me, that's what budgeting has allowed me to do, is to really invest into my dreams and the things that I want to take on in my life. So this had such a positive impact in my world that I really set the clear intention that if I get married, and there was like a very low probability at that point, it seemed to me, that I would retake this class with my husband. So 7 years later, I met David, and we got engaged. And we not only took this class, but also for the past 3 years, we have met every single month at the beginning of the month to do what we refer to as a budget committee meeting, where we look at our finances that are coming in, our income that's coming in for the month, and then what we are going to allocate our money to spend and to save. And we don't often talk about this anymore because it's so integrated as a part of our lives, but every once in a while it'll just like come up in conversation and people are like so fascinated with it. And I think it's kind of weird. Like I wish it wasn't so rare that a couple like budgets, that just seems like something we all could be doing. But we do answer questions. And so I took down notes on like what the most frequently asked questions that we are asked, and thought it would be more fun if we did a Q&A. And then if you have questions and you would just want to write them down and send them up to us, I think we can answer your questions well. So Dave, if you want to join me up here. These are from people who we have mentored and helped with creating budgets. So this first question is for you, David. Ashley was obviously into budgeting. What was it like for you to begin?
It was terrible. It was just hard to take an honest look at the expenses that I had and how much money I was making and how much I was spending, and it was difficult.
Yes, I can say yes, that was accurate for him. And one of the things I remember really early on when I asked him if he wanted to do this, and I'm so thankful that he was willing to meet me in this vision that I had for our relationship, was that you were afraid that it was going to limit you. Like you were very concerned that it was going to take away your freedom.
I totally lived by just doing whatever I wanted with my money, so of course it was going to take away my freedom, so I thought.
Okay, so next, what, did it?
Well, that's sort of a spoiler, but yeah. You know, what I realized is this kind of subtle experience that I have now, where when I go to buy something, I don't second guess it, because I know that the money's there. And the sense of freedom is really in deciding. It's now happens at the moment when I sit down, and Ashley and I sit down, and we decide what we're going to do with our money, which could be anything. So it's really, the freedom is just moved into a more conscious place and more choosing place, and that's great.
Yeah, I could relate to that, especially like 10 years ago when I started. I had a lot of guilt about investing money to myself. So like when I would maybe someone mentioned like getting manicures and pedicures back there, but when I would go do that, I would feel so much guilt about spending money on myself. And now when we have a budget and I have money allocated for whatever the category is, I'm like, there's just a sense of freedom. Like I don't feel bad that I'm spending the money because I know we have it.
Like getting a massage, and we have a category in our budget just called blow money. That's money you can spend on whatever you want. It's not all the money, but it's it's nice to have that too. And I always save mine.
Yes, we're very different in the ways that we interact with our blow money. I spend mine by the beginning, like the first week of the month, and David has like maybe 7 months worth of blow money saved up. So this one's also for you. David, what was your biggest objection to doing a budget?
Well, I think that we touched on the biggest objection was the feeling of losing the freedom.
Yeah.
Just not knowing if I could do it.
Yes. And another thing that was interesting when we first started doing this, David was full-time practicing as an artist. And so he didn't have a steady paycheck. So that was something that we had to figure out, and which was a part of Financial Peace University. And another objection I hear to people saying that they can't do a budget because they don't have a steady income. And so what we figured out for ourselves, I actually don't even know if this was what was recommended in the course, but was we just used our past month's income and budgeted and used it for the current month that we were in. All right. Have you always stuck to your budget?
That one's for you.
Well, no, we're human. We've never gone over like the full, like if this was our income and we had $500. We've never gone over the $500 amount, but in these like these categories, like there are definitely times where we've gone over, and for different reasons. David's better about saying it in advance that he wants to go over. Like he was officiating a wedding and he wanted to get a new suit. And so he told me like, I would really like one, but I don't have enough money in my clothes budget. And so I gave him my money. And I maybe have been a little bit more willy-nilly and then spent money that I didn't have that he has then funded back for me. But overall, like we stay with it. We figure out how to make it work so we're not going over. And I would not recommend doing that, what I just said that I do. But for the most part, every month, we stick to it.
Yeah, that's true.
And feel free to write any other questions that you had. So do you tithe and why?
Yeah, so tithing is at the top of our budget, and that's where we pay 10% of our income, our increase, to the source of our spiritual teachings. And to me, that's like the icing on the cake, is just being able to give that money right away each month. Just feels like an acknowledgement of all the abundance and everything that I receive. So I'm really grateful for that. And I've been doing it for a long time. And that's been a part of our conversation, and our budgeting has been about giving. And that tends to be an area where we really like to show up. And our budget is like to giving gifts to others, in supporting causes that are we believe in, and in our tithing. So our giving practice is really nice. It's thriving, I would say.
Yeah, and
Do you want to
that's.
say anything about tithing?
Yes, I tithe. Where's David Funk? We have a blueberry bush in our backyard, and I even tithed on my blueberries. I gave David Funk one of my 10 blueberries that bloomed last year. But to me, I grew up in a religion that was a part of the practice, and my parents are incredibly generous people, and whenever I go to my hometown, people are really acknowledging of my parents, and they've been such an inspiration for me in that way. And when I first came into doing budgeting, I didn't have a church or a spiritual practice, and I was open to giving, I just didn't know who to give to. And so I cultivated donating to organizations that were meaningful to me, and now I am a member of MSIA, and I tithe to MSIA, but I still contribute. Although I'm like shared a lot about like that I like to spend money, so much of what I like to spend on is giving. We have a category called miscellaneous giving. I picked organizations that I've worked for in the past that have meaning for me, and part of for me about budgeting is recognizing like where do I want to be investing my energy. And I've found through this process I'm less interested in having material things and wanting to make a meaningful contribution in the world. And this has helped me figure out how I can do that through organizations that are doing things that align with what I feel my own purpose is. Okay. Oh, yeah. You go for it. Read it.
If you don't spend your full budget each month, does the money roll over to the next month?
This is a great question. I'm so glad whoever asked that. So there are different categories. So sometimes like these categories, like you automatically will spend the same amount each month. So like your rent is probably, unless it goes up, it's probably not going to change. There are some things like, let's say up here you are saving for, they're called funds, you're saving for a trip. So that money is going to roll over every single month. And then if you have funds, you're just carrying it over. So for like you're planning for a trip, every month you're putting away a certain amount of money until you get to the amount so you can take your trip. And the good news is in your budget, you should know like your cell phone bill is probably the same amount each month. Your food is a good example. If you can't exactly know unless you buy the same thing every single month, you don't know how much you're going to spend. So we use an envelope system where we cash out if I had my wallet, I would show you, but we cash out our expenses like food, and if we don't spend all the money for food, we carry it over for the next month. Oh, thank you. That's a good question.
She said, what do you mean cash out?
Yes. So we have certain categories that we only pay cash with. So once we create our budget, we go to the ATM and draw out that specific amount of money that we are going to need. This is actually my favorite part of the budget. It's like feels like Monopoly, because we take out the cash and then we're dividing it into the different envelopes. And then we only spend what's in that envelope. And then we have other categories that it just makes more sense, like our electricity bill. It like automatically comes out of our account. So we don't get cash for that. We just track it on an Excel spreadsheet. And there's lots of different resources if this is something you're interested in. There's apps. There's one called Every Dollar where you can do a zero-based budget. There are other budgets as well. We personally use Google Sheets and just track it that way.
So if you had a budget of, say, $200 for your groceries and you...
We need a microphone.
No.
So this will be the last question, by the way.
Okay, good. So if you had 200 in your cash envelope for groceries and you only spend 100, you put another 200 in for the next month. You carry it forward to the next month.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I think.
And then we look at, like, are there some categories where we're putting too much money in that we maybe want to invest it into something else if we continue to have money left over each month. So I will wrap up just by saying like that I want to create a challenge for you to end on, and then I also have one quote that I want to read. And the challenge is to, if this is something that's interesting to you that you would want to explore, is to pick a date that you'd have a draft of your first budget. And if so, then find someone either in this room or think of your best friend or your partner that you would want to have them follow up with you on this date to ask you if you have completed your draft budget. It's just a way to create some support in helping you commit to what you follow through on what you commit to. And I wanted to read this quote that really reminded me a lot of what Anthony DeMello was saying. It's by St. Augustine. Pray as though everything depended on God. Work, and I would add budget, as though everything depended on you. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Ashley, for that inspiring talk. And I think we're very, well, I know from personal experience that this area of budgeting will transform your life. And we heard Ashley's story, how it transformed hers. Last month, we heard Claudia Olgin get up and talk about how it transformed hers, how she had an envelope for everyone, every piece of expenditure, really down to that nitty-gritty. Ashley mentioned, and Claudia, Financial Peace University. We're looking at having that, bringing that course here. So stand by, and it's a video course, and Dave Ramsey is a Christian minister, and he's a best-selling author, and it's a radio program, and he's been around for a long time, and again, very practical tools. And it really helps to have people who have been on the ground and really working it and getting results. That's a lot different than the theoretical application, right? So thank you for sharing that, David and Ashley. And perhaps you'll come back. I mean, if you have questions, maybe when people work this, you can come back next month and we can just see if we can build some momentum to this. Well, now my great pleasure to introduce Nick Siegel, our guest speaker for this evening, and he'll take us on a ride to who knows where. Nick, come on in.
Well, thank you. I'm a terrible budgeter. Let's just get right to it. I loved hearing that, and I want to look at it from another perspective. And I realized that as long as I was a terrible budgeter, I put myself in harm's way financially, and also from the perspective of the stress level that would come up as well. Paul shared a little bit about what became an NPR segment about how I was so bad at budgeting that we racked up, I don't know, I think it was like $120,000 worth of credit card debt. And thank goodness it was only like 18.9% at that time. Because I think now, I mean, I haven't had a credit card interest payment in I don't know how long, but I think they get to like 25%. It's like mobster money, you know, in a piece of plastic. But neither here nor there. And so, from my perspective, I had to get to that rock bottom place before I realized I can't do this anymore. So one of the things I want to open up with is really a question to you all. Why is budgeting important to you? I mean, and let's look at the word budget. How many of you go, oh man, when I hear the word budget, it's like I'm on a Hawaiian beach. I'm just relaxed and the breeze is going in. Just budget, you know. It's a terrible word. It's in many respects. So those words like, it's just got constriction written all over it. You're like, you're going to confine me. I get it, David. Where's my freedom if I'm going to be budgeted? You know, just limit me. Just crush me now. Just put a big anvil stone on me and I'll just, you know, die away. But if we look at the understanding of why we do this and what the benefit is and what the payoff is and what the freedom that comes out of it to then make conscious choices, well, then I would suggest that the word budget is really the word discernment. And where am I discerning in my choices? And what I'd love to spend a little time on is why. You know, why is that important? I was in the car the other day with my son, and I have the blessing and the great fortune that he drives me around. So he's in the car now, he's sleeping, I'm sure. But this is a long day for him. We started in Pasadena, then we went through Beverly Hills, we were in Santa Monica, and then back to Beverly Hills, and then back out here. And so he wants to get into video, and he wants to start doing little video segments for real estate agents, and we all know the power of video. It's you know, it's scalable. You can be authentic if you're good at it. You can look in a camera and you can share an idea, and if the idea resonates inside of you, oftentimes it will transmit through that camera lens, and then people will get that. And so he wants to help people message themselves. You know, I hope everybody, when you consider what you do in the world, when you consider what your purpose is, and that's a very broad spectrum, right? What is your purpose? But I would hope that you look at your life and you look at the choices that you make, and there is that element of why am I doing it? You know, why am I about to take this step forward in that direction? And so back to Ted, he was like, well, how am I going to get people to hire me for these videos? And I said, well, I think you're asking the wrong question, Ted. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, where's your focus right now? And he goes, well, where's my focus right now? It's on getting people to hire me. And I go, okay, right. And so what's in association with that? He goes, well, the money. I want to make some money doing this. I go, I applaud you in that. And the more money you make on your own, Dad, you know, gets a free ride. I can budget my money elsewhere. So I said, Dad, how long have you been around me now? How long have you heard me getting up in front of people and talking about what is we'll call it the original question. What's the first question? And he thought about it, and he felt like he was on the spot in that moment. He goes, And I was driving at the time, so it's good news. So I took the first shot out to Pasadena. And he goes, well, why am I doing it? I said, why are you doing it? And he says, well, I love helping people. I said, great. So how do you apply you love helping people into this now vehicle that you want to do videos? Well, I get that I can help people make more money in their business. I said, now you're on the right track. And what's the biggest fear that someone has? What's the biggest resistance, shall we say, that someone would have to get up and speak in front of a camera? It's our own self-judgment, right? How am I going to sound? How am I going to look? Oh my God, I look terrible. No, 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 no. I'm not going to do it. And that limitation, I'm going to use the word budgets us down, right? It just sucks us into that vortex of, I'm not doing that because goodness knows I don't want to put myself out there, and dare, God forbid, I get embarrassed, right? So Teddy, you have a glorious opportunity, I shared with him, to put people at ease. And you do that really well. And what if part of your value proposition was meeting someone where they were and said, what is it that you'd like to message? What would you like to share about how you do your business and why you do it? And while going through that, there's the opportunity to almost direct you and coach you so that you feel as comfortable as possible, so that the message isn't tarnished or clouded or influenced negatively by your own reservation, that it can be more vulnerable. And he got it. And in that moment, Teddy had his course. And the how came out of the result of the clear intentionality of his why. So when you consider what you do in your life choices and where you choose to spend your time, because resources are not related just to money, right? Time is the ultimate resource. And the more discerning you are with your time, and I'll speak for myself, the more discerning I am with my time, well, then I give myself great freedom because I'm in alignment with the things that I'm choosing to do, and they're in alignment with the original why as to before I even got out of bed. So I'll give you my little ritual of Nick getting out of bed, okay? I'm gonna keep my clothes on because we'll just keep it there. It's a public forum, who knows where this is going. But the first thing that I do when I become conscious, and I now beat my alarm. How many of you beat your alarm? You know, I get up before the alarm goes off. I don't know what that is, but I do that now. Maybe it's because I'm just getting older. I don't know. And anyway, so the first thing I do is I tap into first my own spirit, my own gratitude, that I'm thankful that I have an opportunity for the day, and to remember what's most important. And then before I even get off the pillow, I will start to go, okay, and so what am I doing today? Now we have a 7-month-old little girl named Lily Grace. Lily Grace is like this big now. And because Mama, Laura, does the most exquisite job raising this child, I do the morning duty. And thank goodness, Lily, thank you that you sleep through the night. 7 months. I'm very, very thankful for that. And so I get up at 6. And I have my own ritual, and it includes my own spiritual practices, and because I want to be ready when Lily gets up. But my focus is always, what is the day? And what's going to be the most important thing that I do in this day? And if money is a focus that you have that pulls you out of your loving, I'm going to suggest that there's an imbalance there. And that's a very interesting way, I find, to consider a budget, to consider what your resources are, both in time and in money. And where are you getting maximum value for those things? And where are you taking maybe the short-sighted, well, I'll just buy that. And it doesn't matter, I got money in my pocket. And we lose sight of a greater objective. And until you have that greater objective, until you understand why you're budgeting, both your time and your money and your resources, I'm going to suggest you're going to be hard-pressed to do it. Because the first distraction, the first habit pattern that you have, this is a habit, right? I mean, this takes time, this takes dedication, it takes effort, it takes sacrifice. So let's look at that word for a second. How many of you, when you consider the word sacrifice, consider that has a negative connotation? Yeah. So sacrifice, I believe, Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, comes from the root word of sacred, does it not? Yeah. So there's a sacredness through sacrifice. Now, consider what the meaning of sacred is to you. To me, that is most precious, right? That is on high, whatever that means to you. I'm the practical guy, by the way, so in this room. So from that perspective, it can be God, it can be whatever it is for yourselves. But when you consider the discernment and the sacredness of your choices, well then in alignment with why, it becomes very easy to choose which way you go in any given moment. And how many of you have woken up, because I had this instance on Monday morning, you woke up and you just got a bad feeling about the day. It's like, ugh, I don't know how this day's gonna turn out, but I'm not having a good feeling about it. And there wasn't anything on my schedule that was really overt or like, oh God, I gotta fire someone today. You know, that's fun. That's a tough moment. But I didn't have anything wrong, but I just had a bad feeling in my stomach. But it didn't stop me from going through the normal course. But I knew I was in trouble when even in looking at Lily, and I still couldn't totally engage with her. And she was giving me these smiles, and I was paying her eye service back, because I can't, no lip service, because she's not hearing, understanding truly the words coming out of my mouth, and I'm certainly not understanding the words coming out of her mouth. But from that perspective, I couldn't shake it. And sure enough, got a phone call at about 10:15. And the phone call was related to a previous meeting I had where I flew up to San Francisco to meet with the CEO and the COO of the company. And they run Northern California, and I take care of Southern California. And we had a budget meeting about how we were going to recapture $10 million. Well, that's an agenda, right? We've got a budget of $63 million. The market's off, real estate market, is off 15% in Southern California. Our average sales price is, I can give you all the metrics, it's a boring story. But the bottom line, $10 million. How are we going to find it? And as Ashley said earlier on, when there is a shortfall, you got one or two choices. You either make more money or you cut your expenses, right? And so we had this conversation, and it was a very, and candidly, the majority of the shortfall is in Southern California. And I'm a very competitive person. We'll get into that in a moment. But in Northern California, they're doing okay. And so I looked at this, and my competitive juices were up, like, okay, I'm all in. We're going to do what we need to do that makes sense. And from afar, they were saying, well, we should do this move and move it there. I said, no, that's a bad idea, because that's going to blow up in your face, that in our face. We don't want to do that. So we looked at it different ways. Then we had a little discussion about some of the people that are involved in what we're doing, and very important people in the scheme of the work that we're doing. And I was very candid about my commentary about those people, and I've been candid about it for quite some time. Part of my why is speaking my truth, and it's speaking it from a loving place as possible. But I let them know in no uncertain terms that if they're supposed to help me do what we need to do, I'm not seeing it. And so Monday morning comes around, and the call comes from him, and he says, I felt you threw those two people under the bus. And what I would have liked you to have done is taken greater accountability for your own, for Southern California. So I told you I'm a very competitive person. But I'm also someone who's very authentic in my communication. And when I sense bullshit, boy, you're going to see another Nick Siegel. And part of Nick Siegel's dynamic is he grew up in New York, and there's a little New Yorker in there, and sometimes he just has a little right hook that's just could come out of nowhere. So I was very candid, and I said, no, I don't think I did that at all. And I went through my own dynamic of what was my truth. And part of our why, ideally, always, is going to be speaking your truth. And you speak your truth through where you choose to spend your money, and where you spend your time, and also how you interact with people. But it does go back to that original why, of why I do what I do. And in that moment, part of my master intention, if I have a master intention at all, is to express my joy and my loving at all times. So as I stand here right now, that's my undercurrent, to express my joy and my loving from my experience. And so in that moment, even though it was a tough conversation, or it could be perceived as a tough conversation, because candidly it wasn't a tough conversation with me, it just, I spoke my truth. There was still my joy and my loving in it. And so at the end of the conversation, I got a response back, well, wow, Nick, I really thank you for your candor. Okay, I get it. I said, yeah, I appreciate you get my candor, but what are we going to do about those two people that are still lingering out there at issue? Because just because I find in my life that I may create a peace and speak my truth. If I know that there's something that still needs to be handled, we got to handle it. Because if we don't handle it, it's going to show up in some other form or fashion. And so, just like with budgeting, if you don't budget and it's leaking, that boat, and more money's going out than money's coming in, you're gonna have a problem. And so, as you consider your finances, as you consider your abundance as a whole, I encourage you all to, if you truly want to get to a fiscal responsibility, to a fiscal freedom, it starts with really understanding, why do you want it? Because you are going to be challenged. And in those moments of challenge, the greater the connection to your why, the easier it is to course correct and get back on track with your discernment and with where you then spend your time. And I share that story about that meeting on Monday and the bad day. But I'll give you another facet of the day in the morning. Before that call came in, I was kind of sluggish in this approach. I knew that I had two other things that I needed to do, two other really critical things that are trying to move new agendas forward. I'm a highly creative person. If I'm not creating something, I feel like I'm not fully alive. And so I've got this wonderful idea, and it is a broad agenda, to say the very least. And I'm playing with people much smarter than me in fields that I have no clue about, like coding and platforms on that, on that digital vehicle. But I know what I do well, and I know what I bring to the party. And the irony of it all is that this dear, sweet book called On Your Terms, that I wrote because I just wanted to share what I'd learned to date, the fact that I put this book out here, which took 4 years, and there's someone in the room, Lauren Bright, who helped me with the edits, thank goodness, because I would have the ever running on sentence if I were left to my own devices. You don't say anything. And but this book created an energy. And we all create an energy. And because of that energy, it started bringing people together. And so when I would whisper in someone's ear, I have this idea, and I need this, that, and the other thing, because that person was inspired, they go, I got the right person for you. And it was the perfect person. And we now have the perfect people that have come together, and we're talking about something that could be, it's a $14 trillion industry that I'm looking to get into, okay? So the stakes are pretty high. And I know that we need certain dynamics and money and connection and all of those things. And I put something out to someone who could be instrumental in this equation. And and I decided not to text him. How many of us hide behind the text these days? As opposed to, oh my goodness, I may need to pick up the phone and actually hear their voice, and they would hear mine. And that's what I did. And this person was in no mood to talk, but he still took the call because he's a partner in this equation. And he says, you haven't heard back from that guy? I'm on it. And within 12 minutes, not only did we have the connection to the major source to rally this whole thing together, he responded back to me in kind and says, I really love this idea. Let's move forward on it. So immediately the day started picking up. But why did the day pick up, and how did the day pick up? Because even through the sluggishness, even through I got a bad feeling about this day, I still understood where I needed to keep driving my bus and staying connected to what's most important to me. And no matter how you feel, John Rogers said something beautiful. Don't trust your feelings. Because if I just said to you all, there's $1 million for, when you get off an airplane and there's a chauffeur or someone coming to pick you up, and Nick Siegel right there. What if I told you all have $1 million in a truck and all your names are on it? Just go to your truck and they'll even drive you to your bank. Your mood would change. You'd feel a little different all of a sudden. But that's just a momentary blip, and our feelings will dance us around. And the truer you are to the connection of your why, beyond the feeling level, to say, I know I need to put one foot in front of the other and keep driving this thing forward. Because I am connected to that, the feelings come by the wayside and the rewards come back. Have you had that experience where you put something out there and it comes back? And it's wonderful. And it's something called momentum that you build on, but you generate that momentum. I love that joke, buy a ticket. It's a great joke, you know? Buy a ticket. You got to buy your ticket and be responsible with your resources, both in time and in money. And as you connect that to your why you're doing it and what's most important to you, you will start to see where it's no longer important, where the things that you may resist start to fall away and or you work through them because those are part of the stepping stones that get you to where you want to be. And then it's, then it becomes really a magical life. Any questions anybody has about, yeah. And if you'd start with your name and let's get you a microphone. You okay if we get a mic on you? Yeah. New York City, rock steady, baby. Okay.
I'm Jesse, and I love what you said about the why.
Yeah.
Because I'm really interested right now. I don't know if you know the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And he talks about that really what also brings you abundance is like the serving of people, which is like the why.
Yeah.
And you're in real estate business, right?
That's accurate.
So he talks about the passive income.
Yeah.
And that people who basically work any jobs is like kind of like slavery, but because you don't get anything back. You have the assets, but then you spend everything.
Yeah.
But so what I thought to myself, okay, I work with kids and I love it because I love the kids.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it gets exhausting sometimes because a part of my freedom is taken too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I make more money than other people, but it's not enough. And
Define it's not enough. What's the enough?
To have the freedom, like to be like, I wake up and I'm like, I can do whatever I want.
So there are two questions there. One, on the foundation level, do you make enough money now to pay all of your bills? Or is there a shortfall?
I think I do. I have a little bit, like, every month I have a little bit of, like, I'll go over the credit card.
Yep.
Like, but I can pay my rent and, like, I have more expense than other, like, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
But I'm just spending it, like, because I feel like I want to eat healthy.
Yep.
So I go to Air One. I want to.
I get all that. Let's get back to the kids. Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the question in all of this?
My question is, I'm really interested in like the passive income.
Yep.
And like that whole where you like kind of abundantly get the money in. And is the why the freedom? Can the freedom why be if I'm not that interested in like. If I had the money to get like real estate, I'd do it.
Yep.
But I'm not really interested in all that. What I'm more interested in is like, I love acting and music.
Yep.
And I guess I have to find my why and move from there. Is that?
Well, there's a lot. In what you shared. So let me just try and distill it. Looking for your why. You love working with kids. You want passive income. And you want to... in all of that, where's the why? What is the why in that? Why are you doing any of that? What's the most important thing?
Acting and music.
Acting.
Yeah.
That's an expression of what?
My creativity,
Yeah. So you get to express yourself.
So that's the why.
Right. So everything you do is fueling that love of what you want to do. So if right now, if the job is taking care of kids?
Yes.
Right.
Well, it's kind of I'm teaching them improv and acting, so it's part of it.
So is there enough time? Do you have an agent?
Yeah.
All right, great. Do you work as an actor?
I go out, but not as much as I want to.
All right, so where are you spending time on anything other than taking care of the kids so you can pay the bills and focusing on your craft so that you can be that much better an actor?
I do YouTube.
Sorry?
YouTube.
You spend time on YouTube?
Well, I make videos.
Okay. Do you make money on that?
A little bit, but not enough to.
Do you express your creativity on that?
Yes, but I think I can do more, and
Okay.
so I think.
Great. So those things are still on track. Where are you off track? If we're talking about discernment, do you understand what the word discernment means?
It's evaluating the situation.
Yeah, right. It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's conscious choice in alignment with what is your why. So my response to you would be, it sounds like you have a clear understanding of why you do what you do and what brings you joy. Where are you spending time that you could then rededicate and double down on the efforts that would bring you closer to experiencing what is your why and the joy and the freedom of acting? And you have the answer. I don't need you to share it with me. But as I'm sharing that, do you see things that are showing up that, oh, I do that may be a little off purpose?
Can you repeat what you said before one more time? I think it clicked, but.
Sure. So there are 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
You got to sleep.
Yes.
Right. So, and then when you're in your joy and you're expressing yourself through acting, that's one channel of expression, right? And that's time that it takes to do that.
Yes.
And you can monetize that, and the more you monetize that, guess what? The more you get to do it.
That's true.
Right. And then you could be byproducts of passive income because you can start investing in duplexes and fourplexes that start throwing off cash that could pay the bills for you so that you start to make money while you work, play, and sleep. That's a nice position to be in.
I think it comes down to faith. It's like, do I have the faith that this works out? And because I get the money from the kid situation.
Right. So the
I
other
have to
element
be focused and double down on like I'm just gonna keep going and like keep moving and trust that eventually it will blossom and
if you're doing what you love to do, you will express that and it will resonate. So there's a job that you need to pay the bills right now. It sounds like it's taking care of kids.
Yeah.
Right. So you do that, punch your clock, get paid. What you do with your money, that's entirely up to you. Sounds like there's a little loose in there. There could be some more discernment in that. But then there's a time beyond what you're spending to make money and your creative practice. There's other things that you're doing, I'm going to suggest.
Yes.
That may be a little off purpose.
That's it.
Double down in those times and focus more on
My creativity, my expression.
Exactly.
I got you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Any other questions? Yes. Let's get you a microphone. And please start with your name.
Thank you, first of all, for being here, and Ashley, too. I have many goals, or let's just say, bottom line, I kind of beat myself up if I'm not working 24/7. Like I work here, then I go home, and I have other things, other projects I do.
Yep.
And my husband is an angel, but he's also a workaholic, but is really passionate about his projects, so he's on the computer a lot.
Yep.
And I feel guilty if I don't work, if I'm not furthering what are my dreams. But I also get exhausted, and I do need downtime. And I know I feel better when I have downtime, when I allow myself to just lie down on the couch and watch Victoria, on Amazon Prime for an hour.
Please, why don't we all?
Yes, yes, darling.
So you said something that's interesting to me. You feel guilty.
Yeah, I really do.
Is that serving you?
No,
So why do you do it?
because I guess it's that double thing of like, well, I must be a good person because I don't know, or maybe it's just an old habit of like beating myself up into submission. I don't know.
Your thoughts of yourself and your actions are not in alignment. Did you take Insight?
Insight?
Insight. Have you taken Insight seminar?
7 times Insight 1.
Well, they cover this in Insight 1, so fantastic. Maybe you just needed this refresher course. When your thoughts about yourself differ from your actions, that gap is called guilt.
Right, and I need to either...
You don't need to do anything.
Okay.
But you can choose to do it.
Right.
What would you choose to do if you were on your game?
If I was on my game, I would say I would redefine what a good person is, right?
How about
It
how
was
about
a while
let's keep
back.
Let's keep it very personal.
All right.
What if your actions, you love to work?
Well, sometimes. I mean, there's work that I need to do to bring in income.
Of course.
And then there's work that I know I need to do if I want to get anywhere with my other goals.
Okay. But again, so you have a thought process about yourself. You called it a belief system, right?
Okay?
I before E except after C. Okay? So one of these two things has to change, or you're going to keep living in this world of guilt.
Right.
So either your actions are going to align with your thoughts about who you are, and you claim who you are, and your actions support that, or your thoughts need to change to accept how you act in your actions.
Yeah.
So if you have great dreams, wonderful. How much time can you budget towards those dreams? How much time can you budget or be discerning about to rest and take care of yourself? Because those are all now positive thoughts that can support greater action.
Yeah.
But when you have this disconnect and you live in this world, you've got to be exhausted,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what conscious choice can you make right now to start to embrace and accept who you are right here?
Well, quite frankly,
Please
it's a lot of talking to, like,
How about starting with a little talking? But just one thought.
or just it's okay. It's great that you're doing this because we
That who is?
know it's great that it's like I'm talking to my little kid inside.
I think that's when was the last time you had a real conversation, a little heartfelt, loving embrace with that little kid?
Not too long ago.
Great.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that?
Yes. I mean, yes, it's helpful because it keeps me back into my loving rather than to the tyrant.
Well, wasn't that a wise choice that you made in that moment?
Yes, and
Could you, how about just making that choice again?
yes, and when I lie down on the couch, I mean, I do. What I'm saying, Nick, is it's a struggle. I do the action anyway.
I understand.
And then I
A
do the
struggle is a
talking.
judgment. It's not when you do it, it's pretty straightforward, right?
You lie down on the couch and watch Victoria.
Right. Is that a struggle?
No.
That's a pretty straightforward action, right?
Yeah.
So be careful how you talk to yourself around what you're doing.
Okay.
Because those thoughts, struggle is a thought.
Okay.
It's a judgment.
Okay.
Right? Just go do it. And love yourself up along the way. And all of those projects that you've got beyond the day job, I would take a good hard look at them from a budgeting perspective and say, how much is each one of these things in alignment with my why? Because if this one isn't, and that one isn't, that one maybe, and this one is in alignment with the other things that you've got going on in your life, then that's where I would place my energy, and I let these go. There's only so much anyone can do in a day. And part of letting those things go is also letting the belief system that I always have to be fill in the blank. Sometimes you choose to do this, sometimes you choose to do this, but it's about a choice and not a have to. Because then you take ownership, you take dominion over what you're doing because you're choosing into it. When we say we have to do something to ourselves, or we have to, we're beholden to something else. I'm not quite sure what that is, but when we say I choose to do that, that's an empowering move. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Immensely. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or thoughts around budgeting? So yes, Barbara, let's give Barbara a mic and start with your name.
Hi, I'm Barbara. Hi, Nick. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is, I have sacrificed really everything. I'm on the bare necessities.
Yep.
I have a vision, a big vision of a project that I've had for 30 years that I don't touch because I'm not good enough yet. I should have started 30 years ago.
Okay, that's would we call that a belief system?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
My question is charge card debt that
Charge card debt.
that I have relied on for necessities.
Yep.
And so now I'm at that point where I'm paying just the minimum.
Yep.
We're up to 25%. And I'm really ready to turn this ocean liner around.
Great.
And I just don't know where to start. I have my why, and I'm even reviewing it as we're speaking.
Good.
So my dreams still seem to be intact, but I may have to sacrifice those too. So self-care is even sacrificed because of monies.
Self-care is sacrificed because of your
Money, lack of
money.
funds.
Well, what if you just declared bankruptcy and wiped out that debt?
Because I'm 66, and I figured it would still be on my record till I'm 76.
Yep.
And it would make it very difficult for me to get a car and a house and the business.
Depends on how your deal goes through, and depends on if you got a financier and someone who embraces the idea, and they can be the credit-worthy partner, and you just bring your experience and your expertise into the equation, and your credit-worthiness doesn't come into the equation. Have you considered that?
No.
It's a possibility.
I'm feeling like I have to perfect, this has to be clean slated before I go to someone.
How's that working out to you?
It's not working.
Well, then maybe you want to change it.
Wow.
Just a suggestion. I don't know.
And so as you say that, consolidating the debt, I've been talking to some companies, and they sound like scams because they get a good chunk.
They're just going to put you, how big is your shovel, Barbara?
12,000.
No, the shovel that you're going to keep digging the hole that's going to become 14,000 and 18,000 and 22,000.
Oh, it's going to keep going.
Well, unless you get more money, and correct me if I'm wrong here, unless you get more money, you've either got to cut expenses, but I don't believe they forgive credit card debt and the interest payment that keeps compounding.
You mean these credit consolidation places?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying credit card debt. Now, a credit consolidation, that's not my business. I can't speak to it.
Right.
But I would imagine if they want more money from you, do you have the money to pay them?
The credit cards?
No, the credit card consolidation company.
Oh, no, they just negotiate like 6,000.
Do they do that out of the goodness of their heart?
No, they take it out of the...
So it doesn't cost you anything?
But,
Have you checked that out?
It could ultimately, me ending up paying the whole thing anyway.
Okay. You don't have enough information, it sounds like.
Yeah, but what you said about
There
the
are legal vehicles that you can take. So then it comes down to, are you a person that feels guilty because you declared bankruptcy?
Yes.
Okay, well then you've got to disconnect there.
Right.
Because bankruptcy may be the best thing for you to do.
Right.
Then you've got to embrace the fact that I was bankrupt. I went bankrupt. But if you understand why you're doing it in relationship, this is a legal practice.
Right.
So use everything for your upliftment, learning, and growth, right?
Right.
So can you get out of your own way?
Yes, it would be relief. Yeah.
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just giving you
Options.
to
Okay.
consider.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So, I'll leave you with this. What am I going to leave them with? Love yourself a lot. Love yourself completely. Love yourself beyond any of this stuff. And just embrace the sweetness, the goodness, and the joy that you are, and that you showed up here tonight. There was an inquisitive nature that brought you here. Use that to your advantage. Keep being inquisitive. Take information that works, that resonates for you, attach it, wear it with your why, and let it strengthen you. And go for your wildest dreams. What did John Rogers say in that in the excerpt at the beginning? I give it all to you.
Well, let's hear what John Rogers says.
Yeah,
Perhaps we can just put it on. Can we put
play
on
that
there
again.
where you put your focus?
Your focus, there will be your heart. Where you place your focus, there will be your heart. And that will be the spiritual heart. So if you want to right now have a real short seminar that will last a long time for you, take in your loving into the center of your being and allow it to just expand and lift you into whatever level of consciousness you want, because God said, everything I have is yours.
I've got nothing else to add to that. I bring it over to Paul K.
Well, thank you, Nick, and thank you, Ashley and David. What a wonderful, rich evening. I began by saying if you could just take one idea with you and just work it. You don't have to take everything with you. You just have one little idea, and if you can just work that, just use it to move forward. It's interesting that Nick talked about the why. I present a class on the west side in Santa Monica, where actually Ashley works, called The Wisdom of the Heart, that I co-facilitate with Joey Hubbard and Rachel Jane. And I'm presenting something that I call the 9 M's, the letter M. And the first one is manifestation. Excuse me, the first one is motivation. That's the last one, is manifestation. The first one is motivation, which is the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we going along this area? And then it comes down to mindset. That's the second M, mindset. How are we approaching this? Are we starting out with like, I'm not enough? I mean, you're dead on arrival. By the way, I have these cards I'm holding. I might as well put them down. These are cards you can take with you that lets you know the next abundance classes that we have. The next one is July the 23rd, but you can go online. But please take one of these, and it's got the rest of the year. So if we start off by saying, well, we're not enough, or all the negative voices that you hear and all the reasons why you don't do things, then you've defeated yourself before you've even started. So it's the right mindset, this attitude that we need to get around. The third M is milieu. And milieu is context or environment. It's a French word, M-I-L-I-E-U. Probably close enough, yeah, something like that. Or milieu may be one too many eyes. But it's the context, it's the environment we place ourselves in. Are you around a lot of people who complain? Because if you are, you're going to be complaining. If you're a lot of people that are against something, you're going to be against something. Well, maybe you want to be against something, which is fine. Then you're in the right company. But if you want to kind of lift higher, if you want to be more loving, then you've got to get yourself around loving people, because they're going to pull you along in the down times. So milieu is the environment. And also, if you want to give up sugar, you don't stock your shelves with M&Ms. Right? Because that's the environment you're creating, or ice cream in the refrigerator. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have ice cream in the refrigerator, but if you want to give up sugar, have sugarless ice cream or something. But it's the environment that you're creating around yourself is so important. And then the other M is micro steps. And micro steps are the action we take. We don't have to take massive action, but what is the little step that you can take? Sometimes it can all seem overwhelming, but we want to take a little step to where we want to go. So these things kind of and then meditation. It doesn't have to be this big Buddhist thing, or yoga where we sit cross-legged meditating. I mean, that can be fine. It could be spiritual exercises, but it's more this idea of taking a pause, taking a break, going inside, finding out the imagery that we want, the moment of sacredness, of like slowing down, of being in that place of quietness, because so much can emerge. And then there's music. Music's so important. The music you have around you Is it lifting you? Is it inspiring you? You know what music to play. You have your playlists and you have your Spotify and all of the Pandora and all of those things. And that can really lift you and support you. And music can be sound as well. And then there's movement. Moving our body. One of the great ways to lift ourselves and one of the great ways to reduce inflammation, to accelerate our health, is moving our bodies. We're designed to move. We're not designed to sit. And moving is it used to be very much a part of life. But now we have the luxury, quote, to be able to sit down all day and work from seated positions. And I think it's fair to say it's killing us as a society. So movement is very important. And then the final M is the manifestation. Eventually you arrive. But it all begins with the motivation, which is the why, but it's also the where. Where are you going? Not only why are you doing this, but where are you going to arrive? Because how will you know when you get there? So that's a very important area. So that's where we're going. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a framework where you can kind of look at it. But these elements need to be in place. So I'm so grateful for Ashley to really do the nitty-gritty with us, the tools, and you have something to take away with. Nick can add the context, and I would love them to come back next month, both Ashley and David and Nick. You have a question? Yeah. You want to have a microphone somewhere? Here comes a microphone. The reason is they won't be able to hear you online or anything like that.
Hello, my name is Renee. So you mentioned 9 M's. I only got 8.
Did I miss an M?
Sorry.
There wasn't. Yeah, so I'll have to find out. I must have missed an M. I was just doing this spontaneously. I'm unrehearsed. So we had we had motivation, we had the mindset, we had the milieu, the micro steps, and then we had meditation, movement, and then manifestation. We have to come back next month, and I'll tell you what. I'll have to look at my notes because I thought there were nine M's. But thank you for asking, and thank you for. I wondered about that. I thought that seems a bit short. But so anyway, next month the next M. But this gives you a kind of a framework to kind of work with to build it, and it's a much bigger exercise that we can do perhaps in future months as I develop the exercise in the Wisdom of the Heart program. We can kind of flesh this out in an exercise in this area here. We're about a lot of things in this center in the movement of spiritual inner awareness. We're about soul transcendence, which is this knowing ourselves as a spiritual being, as a soul, and as one with God, and knowing that, and being that, and living that, and traveling the inner realms of consciousness. But we're also about practical spirituality, and that's what we're doing here tonight, is just like how if we know we're a spiritual being, how do we bring that into the world? How do we use this magnificent, this oneness with God, the spiritual energy that we're a part of, how can we use it and bring it forward in a meaningful way? So you heard from John Roger tonight, and one of the ways to take a deep dive into what we do, we have books, of course, and please come back to our next courses. Check out our events. I just finished a one-day urban retreat yesterday. We have flyers with all our events, but we also have something we call Soul Awareness Discourses, which is a year's course which takes you through practical spirituality and this inner approach to know yourself as this soul, as who we truly are. The booklets are not just about information. The information is terrific, but they're also a point of spiritual attunement. They're also a point of releasing negativity and upset, and sometimes called karma. They're also about guiding you through your life. A very, very common experience is for people to experience something going on in their lives, and then they pick up the discourse and go, my God, this is just what I'm going through. And the booklet will just guide you through. So if you're interested in our soul awareness discourses or any of our programs, please feel free to ask. We have refreshments. We have cookies, sorry, online. It's not part of what we can offer you, but we have cookies and tea in the dining room. We want you to just hang out and chat for a little while. Please feel free to hang out. Love to see you back for our next abundance class or any of our Tuesday night that we have open to the public. We had a beautiful sound bath last week, by the way. And hope to see you again. And please come back and be with us. And thank you again. I learned a lot tonight. Hopefully you did too. Okay, God bless.